Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for part 2 of the Monday Q&A, so let's do it. I've seen some of your videos talking about tracking macros can lead to eating disorders. Could weighing your food all the time lead to a disorder? Well, maybe, but not necessarily. It doesn't mean that it's necessarily a big risk. It depends on how obsessive you get about it. For example, the person who is at a big risk of developing an eating disorder is the guy who sits down and when they put a packet of Splenda in their black coffee, they really feel the need to mark the 2 calories or the 2 grams of carbs. That they actually have to mark it and track it on their MyFitnessPal. When you're at that level of obsession that you feel that you have to be within 1 gram on everything, or that you have to be within 10 calories, and you're doing this for any reason other than the final weeks of maybe some sort of contest prep or physique prep, and keep in mind a lot of people who do those develop eating disorders. But in that case, they're competitive. When you're competitive, you don't care about your health so much as winning. So if you develop eating disorder, you don't care. It doesn't matter. But for people who aren't in the middle of prepping for some sort of competitive event, being that obsessive about it, you are definitely at risk of developing an eating disorder. So it just depends on how obsessive you are with it. But just weighing your food every day, I mean, I measure my food out. I don't always weigh it. I do have a food scale. I'm not good about using it, but I measure my food out. So I have an idea of what I take in, but I don't measure everything to the gram. All right, next question. Thinking about switching barbell curls to weighted chin-ups to help grow size on my arms. Is this a good change to make? Pro-con. I have no idea what you mean by the pro-con. But if your biceps are lagging and they're a lagging muscle group, I would say the worst thing you can do if you have a lagging muscle group that you're really concerned about is to develop an either-or philosophy. I think that if you have lagging biceps, and like I do, my biceps need a bit of work. Just like my delts need a bit of work compared to the rest of my body, at least from an aesthetic perspective, not a performance perspective. Well, maybe the delts from a performance. But I would make sure that I do a compound and an isolation for each one of those. For example, for me, every time I train right now, I do weighted chin-ups and I do a curl. Because they're a lagging muscle group, I can't afford to skip that. Whereas in a more dominant muscle group, I can get away with just doing the compounds with no concern about the isolations. In fact, I might only do 1 compound movement for it. But in a case of, say, a bicep, if it's lagging and you're really worried that it's starting to lag behind, you need a bit more bicep development, I think it would be unwise to take an either-or philosophy and only do one or the other. I would pick 1 good, really efficient curl and at least 1 good, really efficient compound movement. In this case, doing a chin-up and a barbell curl, both every time that you train, would be a wise idea for a lagging muscle group like that. It will help you more than it will hurt you. Just don't come in and do endless sets of them mindlessly with no purpose. Make sure that you're picking efficient lifts and an appropriate volume and workload. All right, next question. Is it normal to have bruising on the lower chest from pause benching? It doesn't bother me really, but I'm just concerned in case I'm doing it wrong. If you're getting a little bruising, you're probably pretty early on with pause benching, or you're just dropping the weight too fast. And if you're just dive bombing the weight, you're at risk of cracking your sternum or a rib at some point. So I would be pretty careful with that. But if you're still new to heavy pause benching, yeah, sometimes you can get a little bit of a bruise, but you'll adapt to it and it'll go away. Just, again, make sure that you're not dropping the weight so hard that you're getting a bruise from the concussion rather than just the weight compressing on it, because you'll adapt to the weight compressing on it. All right, guys, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time in part 3.